If 10 grams of nitrogen reacts with 2 grams of hydrogen, how much ammonia can be produced? So the first thing that I'm going to do is list underneath here what I have of each thing. So of nitrogen, I've got 10 grams. And of hydrogen, I've got 2 grams. And I'm looking to figure out how many grams of ammonia I can produce at the end. So I'm going to start with my 10 grams of nitrogen. And I'm going to turn that into grams of ammonia. So the first thing I'm going to do is get my grams of nitrogen to cancel out by turning it into moles of nitrogen. And the value I put down here is my molar mass, so 14 plus 14 gives me a mass of 28. In my next bracket, I want moles of N2 to cancel up, and I'm trying to turn it into moles of NH3. I get those values straight from the coefficients in my equation, and in front of NH3 I have a coefficient of 2, and in front of N2 I have a coefficient of 1. And then in my last bracket here, for every 1 mole of NH3 that I have a molar mass of 17 grams of NH3. That comes from the mass of nitrogen being 14 and the mass of hydrogen being 3. 14 plus 3 gives me 17. When I go through, I take 10 divided by 28 times 2 times 17. I get a value of 12.14 grams of NH3. So that's the amount of ammonia or NH3 that I can produce if I use all 10 grams of nitrogen. I also have 2 grams of H2. For every 1 mole of H2, I have a mass of 2 grams of H2. I want moles of H2 to cancel out, and I'm going into moles of NH3. I use my coefficients here for my mole ratio. I'm in a 2 to 3 ratio. And last but not least, for every 1 mole of NH3, I have a mass of 17 grams of NH3. When I go through, 2 divided by 2 times 2 divided by 3 times 17 gives me a value of 11.33 grams of NH3. Now the question's asking me, what's the limiting reactant, what's the excess reactant, and what's the theoretical yield? So the limiting reactant is the one that produces the least amount of product. So 11.33 grams is less than 12.14, meaning H2 limits my reaction. It stops and only allows me to produce 11.33 grams before my H2 runs out, meaning that the excess reactant is N2, because N2 would allow us to produce more product. That means our theoretical yield is the lower value of 11.33 grams of NH3. The next part asks us how much of the excess reactant remains after the reaction. So in order to solve this, we take our theoretical yield, 11.33 grams of NH3, and I want to know how much excess reactant does it take to produce that. So I'm going to go from my theoretical yield to my excess reactant. So we already calculated the molar mass of NH3. 17 grams of NH3 is the mass of 1 mole of NH3. Once I'm in moles, I can get into moles of another thing. Using my equation, for every 2 moles of NH3 produced, it takes 1 mole of N2. And every 1 mole of N2 has a mass of 28 grams. Now I take 11.33 divided by 17 divided by 2 times 28. I get an answer of 9.33 grams of N2. This is the amount needed to make 11.33 grams of NH3. Now I need to take what I have and subtract what I need to give me my amount that's left over. So in this situation, what I have is the amount of nitrogen that I started with, 10 grams of N2, minus what I need, I calculated that right here, to be 9.33 grams of N2, to give me what's left over, 0.67 grams of N2 left over. That is how you calculate the amount of your excess reactant that remains after a reaction stops.